On today's show, I'm breaking down what you need to know about the Rangers' first 10 picks in the draft and Adolis Garcia's performance in the home run derby. All that and more on this episode of Locked On Rangers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Rangers, your daily Texas Rangers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are locked onto the World Series champion Texas Rangers. I'm Bryce Patrick, a cripplingly addicted Texas Rangers fan covering this team for 11 seasons, including all 6 as the founder and host of this podcast. Thank y'all so much for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. If you're not already, you can follow me on Twitter at Bryce Patrick. You can follow the show at Locked On Rangers. Hit subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform and on YouTube, where the best way you can help grow the show is to comment nearly any single thing below. Now, before we get into the Rangers' first 2 days of draft picks and Adolis Garcia doing what he did in the home run derby, this episode of Locked On Rangers is brought to you by Booking.com. Booking.yeah. The right stay can make you a fan of any city, even your rivals. Check out Booking.com for your stay today. Now, the Rangers have made 10 draft picks so far as I am recording this. They will make the rest of their selections today, which will be less important. Maybe not less important, but probably less important. I mean, picks 11 through 20 usually aren't anything that are that much to write home about. I'll talk more about them later on this week after they happen, but I really wanted to dig into the first 10 picks that the Rangers had, because there's something of note with each of these guys, especially the Rangers' first round draft pick, Malcolm Moore, a catcher out of Stanford, the second catcher drafted in this draft. The first one was drafted just a couple of spots ahead of him at 28 when the Astros picked Walker Janek, a Sam Houston State catcher who won the Buster Posey Award this year for the best college catcher. And the reason that the Astros were picking ahead of the Rangers is because they lost to them in the ALCS. People forget that. The Rangers drafted 30th overall because they won the World Series, a position I hope they will be drafting in for the rest of time. But even if they don't, this was nice to just sit there and remember, oh yeah, we're last in the draft because we won the whole gosh darn thing. Now, Malcolm Moore is an interesting draft pick. He is a catcher out of Stanford. Like I said, a guy who was considered after last year to be the top catcher in that draft class, maybe a top 10 pick, but last year things kind of didn't go as well as he was hoping. He is 20 years old, listed at 6'2", 216 pounds, throws, of course, right-handed because he's a catcher, but he hits lefty. Not a switch catcher, just a left-handed hitting catcher. His first year of college baseball, he played in 64 games, had a 950 OPS, hit over 300, on base of 386, had 15 home runs as a freshman. Won Pac-12 Freshman of the Year, was one of the best players in the Pac-12 as a freshman. Last year wasn't quite as good. The batting average dropped off quite a bit, but the on-base was way up. In his freshman year, he had an on-base of 386, on-base over 400 as a sophomore, hit for a little bit more power in the home run department, not quite as many doubles, a 967 OPS for his second season, his final season at Stanford. There are some questions about him as a catcher. Can he actually catch? His receiving skills are fine, but the makeup is off the charts. The Rangers are big believers in him and his leadership ability, which is an important thing for a catcher. His receiving skills are fine, not great. The arm is average, but eventually with the auto balls and strike system, I'm thinking that there will be less emphasis placed on a catcher's receiving ability, and I think that might be a reason that he would stick at catcher. Even if he doesn't, the bat is really darn good. This was from a friend of the show, Taylor Blake Ward, an MLB draft expert. He was DMing me about Malcolm Moore after the Rangers drafted him. He said Moore is a good hitter, but there's a lot of things to be afraid of. Don't worry about him as a catcher. He'll get the reps there. Either he can do it or he won't. And if he can't, then he'll play third base or left field. But it's not really a problem moving him around. He said he's probably 3 to 4 years away from making the big leagues, maybe 2 to 3 if things are going well. But the bat is very advanced. The swing decisions improved quite a bit last year. And even though the batting average was down around 60 points, the slugging was up. The OPS overall was up, especially that OBP being up quite a bit. The swing decisions were much, much better. And the Rangers know a little something about this, about him having, underlying bad luck offensively, because they've had quite a bit of that themselves this year. But the Rangers are big believers in him. The bat seems to be very legit. Whether it can carry him as a first base prospect, who knows? Whether he can actually catch, who knows? I have confidence in this Rangers team to be able to develop him at catcher. I think there will definitely be a lot of comparisons between him and Walker Janek, who was picked 2 spots before him. I liked Janek a little bit better, but hey, I think both of these guys are good catchers. The Rangers don't have a whole lot of catchers that are in their farm system that are doing particularly well. They got Jesus Lopez, who's doing well in full season ball, pretty darn young, but also pretty darn far away. I don't know exactly where they'll start Malcolm Moore. Maybe he'll start in Down East. Maybe he'll start in Hickory. We'll see exactly what happens with that. I don't think there's any question about him being signable. I think that is something that the Rangers might have put a little bit of an emphasis on this year, because they don't have that big of a draft bonus pool. In case you're not super familiar with how the MLB draft works, it's not like the NFL or NBA drafts where it's always talent number one. There's a lot of different complex ways that teams choose to pick players. A lot of it comes down to, obviously talent, but the ability to sign this player, whether it's a high school player they are, trying to sign out of going to college, or whether it's a junior who they're trying to sign out of, going back for his senior year if he doesn't like where he's drafted or the bonus that he's given. But I think a lot of these guys are pretty signable that the Rangers drafted. I think they've got some interesting bats, and yet again, the Rangers going with a college bat with their first round pick. It has been a pattern going with college kids, but it's more been about the talent that's there. There wasn't as much talent in the high school class this year, kind of thicker in the middle is how the Rangers described it, but I really like the pick of Malcolm Moore. We'll see if he sticks at catcher. If he does, I think it's a great pick, especially if he can tap more into that power. If the advanced approach sticks with him, I think that is a great thing for the Rangers. Now, the Rangers' second and third round picks were also both college bats. Both of them were outfielders. Both of them will probably stick in left field, and both of them are left-handed hitters. There were definitely some similarities there. The Rangers' second-round pick is Dylan Drilling, a left fielder out of the University of Tennessee. The Rangers picked him with their 65th overall pick in the draft. Pipeline had him as the 72nd best pick prospect available. Good overall hitter, good approach, decent power. He's got some pretty solid, running ability. He's not going to be, a base burner. He's not going to play center field, but, a little bit above average speed. The contact ability is there. The approach is good. He's definitely hit for some power, earned some comps to Drew Gilbert, who was a former first-round pick out of the Astros, who they traded in the Justin Verlander deal, was really thought of as a highly regarded prospect, so that's a nice comp for him. He won the most outstanding player in the Men's College World Series final. He hit home runs in all 3 games of that series where Tennessee won its first national championship in baseball. Pretty darn good season for him. We'll see if that approach sticks, if he can still hit for that power. He's going to have to hit. He is absolutely going to have to hit, because if you are a left fielder or a first baseman or even a second baseman, the bat is going to carry you. I think he'll be an average fielder. From all the reports that I've read, he seems to be, not someone that's going to blow you away with Gold Glove defense in left field. But usually if you're in left field, it's because you're a good hitter and you can be all right defensively. Now, the Rangers' third-round pick, kind of a similar profile to Dylan Drilling. This is Casey Cook, an outfielder from the University of North Carolina. The Rangers had him at the top of their board when they went into the third round, and they drafted last in the third round, so it's pretty good for them that he was still available there. Not really beloved by Pipeline. He was picked 103 overall. Pipeline had him 171. He had a really good year this year at University of North Carolina, hitting 341 with an on-base of 431, slugging 605, 18 home runs last year, and by the way, 2 of those home runs were off of the first pitcher taken in this draft. That is the Wake Forest ace, Chase Burns, who was picked by the Reds. He's got a very, very advanced approach. The Rangers are more of a believer in his power than I think the industry is. They love, how he takes his at-bats, how he, controls the strike zone, how he is a very disciplined hitter. Again, a guy who is probably going to stick there in left field, not the most elite athlete, but again, they really, really like that advanced approach. It's something we've seen from their draft picks in the past. Kind of reminds me of Aaron Zavala, except this guy's a little bit more athletic, and hopefully he doesn't have the same health scare that Aaron Zavala had, but they really, really like their advanced hitters with advanced approach. Drelling has that, Casey Cook has that, and there have been quite a few others in this draft that the Rangers kind of have a similar feel. Coming up, we're talking about some of these pitchers that the Rangers drafted and why, even though their numbers aren't great, there's definitely a lot of reason to get excited about them. Right after this, for sponsors. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. It's the All-Star break, which means there are not a whole lot of sports going on right now, but FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open the app and dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right, there's something for everyone, every day, all summer long. If you're looking to bet on the All-Star game, right now the National League is favored at -1.5. You could also bet on the MVP if you're thinking, if you want to be obvious and go Shohei Ohtani, he's plus 800, the favorite to win the MVP. Right now, if you're wanting to be a little bit less of a favorite, Marcus Semien is at plus 4,500 to be the All-Star MVP, and Corey Seager at plus 5,000 to be the All-Star Game MVP. There's all kinds of different bets you can look at, so head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. This show is brought to you by PrizePicks. PrizePicks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. PrizePicks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps, on PrizePicks, it's just you against the numbers. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. Get in on the action daily with your friends and become part of the PrizePicks community today. If you're looking for promotions, PrizePicks has got you covered every single week, from lowering select players' stat projections on Tuesdays to help your lineup hit, or getting your entry fees back if you have a losing lineup on Fridays. You can now win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. You can turn $10 into $1,000. So download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. That's code LOCKEDONMLB on PrizePicks for a deposit match up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. Now, the Rangers definitely had a type in the first 3 rounds of this draft. They went with advanced approach college hitters. Now, they went a little bit different with the final 7 picks. 4 out of those 7 picks were college pitchers. Now, I encourage you to not look at the numbers for these college pitchers, or at least look at them through a different frame. Because if you just look at what they did in college, you would think, what the heck are the Rangers thinking? These guys' numbers are terrible. They're giving up so many runs. They are just not pitching effectively. Why the heck would you draft a guy with a 5 ERA? Well, the Rangers noticed a trend, as have a lot of Major League teams, about college baseball. The bats are really darn good. Offense is way, way up in college baseball, and so a lot of the numbers for these pitchers are much worse than they would be in other organized baseball. The bats are a little bit different. They use metal bats there, so there's a little bit more offense, a little bit more power in college than those hitters would be hitting for in affiliated baseball, in minor league baseball with wood bats and things like that. The only reason that I bring this up is because if you look at the Rangers' hottest pitching prospect this year, a guy who has just flown onto the radar, that's a guy named Alejandro Rosario. You may remember him as the Rangers' 5th-round draft pick last year, or you may not, because when the Rangers drafted a guy with a 6.5 ERA in college out of Miami, you probably thought, what the heck are they doing? This guy stinks. There's no way this guy is going to be a good pitching prospect. And all he's done is absolutely eat up every single hitter that he's faced. Well, not quite every single one. His first 3 starts in Hickory haven't been amazing, but for his first 10 starts of the year in Down East, he was absolutely fantastic. He had a career 6.5 ERA in college, and in Down East this year, first 10 starts, 47 innings, 69 strikeouts, just 5 walks, and a 2.11 ERA. The guy is quickly rising up as one of the Rangers' best pitching prospects. He's in Hickory right now. He's made his first 3 starts there. An ERA just below 4, a little bit more walks than he had at the first level, but 25 strikeouts in just under 14 innings. Absolutely fantastic numbers. And so the reason I mention that is because some of these guys who the Rangers have drafted in terms of pitchers out of college, their numbers overall don't look super pretty. But it seems like the Rangers might have found something, might have found some kind of inefficiency with maybe it's just Alejandro Rosario that's absolutely so much better than his numbers. But I'm willing to bet there was something they saw there, something they could apply to these other pitchers in college who don't have the best numbers and might turn them into pretty darn good pitching prospects themselves. With all that said, let's look at the Rangers' 4th-round pick, David Hageman, a West Virginia right-handed pitcher. He was more of a reliever in college, but the Rangers see him as a starter. He's got a 3-pitch mix, fastball, slider, changeup. Fastball runs 94 to 98. Again, the numbers were not great in college at West Virginia. He was a little bit more of a reliever there, but the Rangers see him at 6'3", big body, as a guy who could hold up as a starting pitcher. The Rangers really like what he's got there. Obviously, the fastball velocity being 94 to 98, it's pretty darn solid. If he can maintain that as a starter, the Rangers will absolutely love that. But I think the Rangers have seen a little bit of a pattern there, and maybe not all of these guys will turn out to be great pitching prospects like Alejandro Rosario, but I think they found some kind of an inefficiency there that they are going to exploit. Next pick, Rangers' 5th-round pick, David Fitz-Gerald. That's not Fitzgerald, all one name. Fitz-Gerald, drafted out of Stoneman Douglas High School in Florida. He is a shortstop. His dad is, of course, a coach, very much coach's kid. Kind of reminds me of a similar profile to Cam Cauley. Not that I'm saying he's going to have the same success as Cam Cauley, but a guy whose overall tools weren't that impressive, but he definitely gets the most out of it. He is a switch hitter. He's got a okay power, not great overall foot speed, but very quick. We'll see if he sticks at shortstop. Might end up having to move to second base, but definitely a gritty coach's son. But coming out of Stoneman Douglas, there are quite a few MLB alums out of Stoneman Douglas, including some current major leaguers. There's Mike Caruso, Matt Fox, Jesus Luzardo, lefty of the Miami Marlins, Kobe Mayo, who is a youngster with the Baltimore Orioles, also Anthony Rizzo. So quite a few MLB alum from his high school. He is a North Carolina State signee, so we'll see if the Rangers can give him a big enough bonus to lure him away from the Wolfpack. So, Rangers' 6th-round pick, another college pitcher, a guy who didn't pitch super well at Liberty, a lefty pitcher, Garrett Horn. Didn't pitch all that much this year, only 4 innings, was dealing with some injuries. Exceptional strikeout numbers, bit of a walk problem. The velocity is up above, he was pitching up to 93 in high school. I think that velo has ticked up just a little bit in college. We'll see if the Rangers can keep him as a starter. Again, not overall super impressive numbers, but I'm willing to give the Rangers a little bit of the benefit of the doubt because of what Alejandro Rosario did. Now, the Rangers' 7th-round pick. This is a guy who I am really excited about, maybe more so than just about anybody besides Malcolm Moore. But the Rangers' 7th-round pick was Rafe Parrish, a third baseman from Lehigh, the tiny college you may remember from upsetting Duke in the NCAA tournament a few years back. Maybe that was like 10 years ago. It's been a minute. But the overall numbers, the power wasn't quite there in the way you would expect a guy who the Rangers are drafting in the top 10 rounds to be. But the Rangers' underlying data that they saw with him was absolutely fantastic. Overall at Lehigh, some pretty darn good numbers, especially his final year at Lehigh. 42 games for him there, just under 200 plate appearances, a slash line of 382, 492, 572, a 1,065 OPS. Only 6 home runs that year, only 11 doubles, but the Rangers see something there in the underlying data. His max exit velocity was 115 miles per hour. 115. the only guys who have hit 115, a ball 115 for the Rangers this year are Adolis Garcia and Corey Seager. And I'm actually not entirely sure that both of those guys have hit a ball 115 miles an hour. Now, granted, that was in college with a college bat, but still, the underlying data, the Rangers see something in there that they can unlock more game power. The approach is obviously fantastic. More walks than strikeouts, significantly more walks than strikeouts in his final year at Lehigh. 34 walks to just 23 strikeouts. Only had it had an 88% contact rate. So really just does not swing and miss. The underlying data suggests there's more power there. If they can stick at third base, that might be a pretty darn good pick for the Rangers in the 7th round. Now, the 8th round pick, Anthony Suzak, a Arizona right-handed pitcher. Another case of bad college numbers, might be something else there. He had some really, really good numbers in the summer league, much, much better against that advanced competition using wood bats. Was more of a reliever in college. We'll see if the Rangers see him as a starter. But again, that's kind of where the Rangers are with that. The Rangers' 9th round pick, stop me if you heard this before, but is a left-handed hitting college bat, Keith Jones II, drafted out of New Mexico State University, spent a little bit of time at Washington State his first couple years of college, then didn't get much playing time, then transferred to New Mexico State where he put up some fantastic numbers, hit over 360 both years at New Mexico State, on base over 470 both years, slugged 710 his final year at New Mexico State. A little bit of inflated numbers because New Mexico State is a little bit higher elevation, but 17 home runs, 19 doubles, 3 triples, and 1183 OPS. The Rangers really liked what they saw there out of Keith Jones to draft him in the 9th round. And the 10th round pick, Jake Jakielic. I've definitely already butchered that quite terribly. But a right-handed pitcher, a reliever out of Northwood College. He's got great strikeout numbers, really good summer league numbers, much better than his college numbers. So again, the Rangers definitely following that pattern. Coming up, we're talking about Adolis Garcia, what he did in the home run derby, why this new format is so darn good, and the Rangers leadoff hitter, batting 9th? This episode of Locked On Rangers is brought to you by Booking.com. Booking.yeah. With summer travel heating up, especially travel for baseball games, it's time to explore those UX cities you always wanted to learn more about. Yes, we're even talking about your rival cities. With hotels, bed and breakfast, vacation rentals, resorts, and so much more on Booking.com, you might just find your perfect stay, even in your baseball rival city. If you're looking for some trips in September, looking at the Rangers away schedule there, they've got some games in Seattle. Seattle is a lovely place, especially around September. I'm sure it will be absolutely beautiful there, or maybe it'll be rainy. But either way, there's some great baseball games there. Or if you want to head to Oakland for the Rangers' final games of the season, check out the Coliseum. While it's still a Major League ballpark, you can find all kinds of great places to stay on Booking.com. The right stay can make you a fan of any U.S. city, even your rivals. Book today on Booking.com, on the site, or on the Booking.com app. Now, last night was the first time that the Home Run Derby had this new format that I absolutely love. But of course, the thing I love most was watching Adolis Garcia get introduced, hit some bombs, and, I would have loved to have seen him keep hitting some bombs and keep going deep in this competition. Alas, that was not the case. He was eliminated after just one round where he looked absolutely magnificent in the first part of this competition. The last couple of years, they have been tweaking the Derby. The last, 3-4 years, I think the Derby has been exceptional, making it in the head-to-head format. This year, it was just a little bit different, having everybody go, and then everybody go again, and then everybody go again. I think that is the right way to do this Derby. It kind of sets you up for more home runs, as opposed to before, if you got the number 1 seed versus the number 8 seed. Number 8 seed goes first, say he hits 5 home runs. Then the number 1 seed only has to hit 6, and then that's it. And I think this is a more fair way, a more equitable way, to where if somebody has a fantastic performance in the first round, and they just happen to go up against, a monster in that first round, then it doesn't penalize them for how many home runs they hit in the seeding in the regular season. And I think that is absolutely great, seeing all these guys go. Adolis hit 18 home runs in that first round before the bonus, which I like that it splits between, having the timer because having the timer forcing you to go fast, I think that kind of speeds things up. It can drag a little bit when it's just the number of outs, so you can just watch pitches for quite a while in between, actually taking those big hacks. But after the bonus round, I just don't think that Adolis Garcia really knew exactly how the format worked after in that bonus round. I kind of thought that he thought that it was just like, the last time he did it, where the bonus round is just an extra minute or minute and a half or whatever of bonus time. So just swing at every pitch and try to hit as many, as opposed to it switching up to being the outs format. I think that's a nice change of, having the two different styles in there, giving guys, especially in bonus time, a second to rest where they're not having to swing at every single pitch. I thought that limiting the number of pitches was interesting. I mean, I feel like this comes down so much to, who is actually throwing your BP. And if they are not throwing it well, then that could really, really hamper you. As we saw for Bobby Witt Jr. in the finals. And as we saw for Adolis Garcia a couple years back when Tony Beasley just became peak Mariano Rivera throwing BP to Adolis. He had a much better BP thrower this time. But in that bonus round, just, hacking at those pitches inside when he didn't have to. He hit the most of anybody before the bonus round with those 18 home runs. Would have loved to have seen him go on, but just seeing the intros for this and before the intros, the freaking, oh my gosh, that might have been the worst version of the national anthem I think I've ever heard. I don't even want to look up the poor girl's name because it was just that terrible. It reminded me of, obviously, the Fergie NBA All-Star Weekend national anthem from a few years back, but Fergie at least was trying something. She didn't do it well. She did not succeed, but that was at least intentional attempt to do whatever the heck she was doing. This one was just, it was just botched, which kind of reminds me that we don't really need the national anthem before every single thing. But in this one case, just having this bad of an anthem kind of makes me appreciate that we did have it. We got to have this communal experience of watching this poor girl nominated for multiple Grammys just really, really struggle out there. Almost struggled as badly as Pete Alonso, which was incredibly surprising. Pete Alonso, the two-time home run derby winner, the guy who just is always in the derby, always doing well in the derby, to see him do that badly was genuinely extremely surprising. But just seeing the intros for this, the SNL cast member whose name I can't remember, who was doing the introductions, just seeing him and the flair that he put on it, the excitement and the cheers for Adolis, just absolutely exceptional. I mean, hearing him make that stadium go crazy, seeing his intro, having him, be the kind of flashy, flary player that he is, getting to, come out of that, that introduction and having all the stars out there for the home run derby hitters to stand on. I thought it was really fun, a fun little wrinkle in there. And of course, seeing Astros fans on Twitter still overdosing on copium, talking about Adolis Garcia being on steroids ahead of the home run derby, just chef's kiss. Kind of wish that he could have hit 18 home runs against the Astros this past weekend, but it's fine. I think the home run derby could be a good thing for Adolis Garcia to get going a little bit, to be more patient. He was very patient in that first round, taking good measured swings, swinging at good pitches, making better swing decisions than he's made for the last couple of months. I mean, the Rangers just need Adolis Garcia to be back to his home run hitting form, to be back to his dangerous, world-beating form. And normally when a guy's going right, you don't want him in the home run derby because sometimes that can mess up his swing. But with Adolis' swing and his decisions and his just approach to the plate being so messed up already, heck, maybe hitting 18 home runs in front of a big old crowd there to see him and cheer him on could be just the thing to get him going. But one last thing I want to touch on is the lineup for the All-Star game tonight. The Rangers have a starter in Marcus Semien, who has been their leadoff hitter for almost every game this season, almost every game since he signed here. But Bruce Bochy, penciling in the lineup for the All-Star game, is hitting Marcus Semien ninth, which, honestly, is not all that unexpected. I mean, the guys who are hitting ahead of him, every other starter is having a much, much better season, to the point where when Marcus Semien was asked about it, he said, heck, I'd hit me ninth too. I mean, he's got the lowest OPS of any All-Star. He is starting to come around the last week or so. Looked great in that series in Houston. Looked great in the series before it. He is starting to come out of that 2-month-long slump, which has been incredibly difficult for the Rangers. Again, I talked about it last week about how much that collision between him and Adolis Garcia has affected the both of them. Neither of them have been quite right for any extended period since then. And I think that this time off, I wish that both of them had, more time off. I'm glad that Marcus Semien is an all-star. I think it's a little bit more on reputation than what he's actually done this year. But there were plenty of seasons where he should have been an all-star and he wasn't before. So this is kind of making up for that. But the lineup is incredibly good. I'm excited for this all-star game. Having Stephen Kwan leading off, Gunnar Henderson, Juan Soto, Aaron Judge, Yordan Alvarez, Jose Ramirez, Vladdy Guerrero Jr., and Adley Rutschman hitting ahead of him. All those guys have been better hitters than him this year. That's just kind of the way it is, and that's fine. I'm also really excited to see that first inning, Paul Skeens on the mound versus Stephen Kwan, Gunnar Henderson, and Juan Soto. I'm hoping that we get to see Skeens versus Judge. I think that's going to be a fantastic matchup. Also getting Corbin Burnes on the hill for this All-Star game ahead of the weekend series in Arlington, where he will be pitching maybe against the Rangers. Maybe Bochy could make Corbin Burnes go the full 9 innings so that the Orioles can't use him this weekend against the Rangers. I don't think that will end up affecting all that much. I'm pretty sure Burnes will probably start on Saturday or Sunday. Either way, the Rangers are probably going to have to face him. He's been pretty darn good. But this is going to be a fun All-Star game. I think that the Home Run Derby is the best All-Star event that any of the major sports put on. I think it's way better than the dunk contest. The dunk contest used to be good, but it's not really good anymore. The three-point contest is fun, but I still give the edge to the Home Run Derby. I kind of like the skills competition that the Futures game did this past weekend. I think that maybe the MLB will start including that in the same night as the Home Run Derby. I don't know. We'll see exactly what's going on with that. But the All-Star game, by far the best All-Star game among any of the major sports. I mean, the NBA All-Star game, nobody's trying. It's all just such a show. It is just absolutely not the same game of basketball. There is absolutely no defense. The NHL All-Star game, the format is just very confusing. Having it be based on divisions as opposed to just conferences, and switching everybody out every period is just kind of confusing. And then the Pro Bowl is just an absolute joke that nobody watches and nobody cares about. It's just basically become a dodgeball game anyway. But at least in the MLB All-Star game, there are people that are trying. You can't really halfway it if you're pitching. You can't just kind of lob one in there for guys. Maybe the defense isn't as full tilt. Maybe guys aren't taking the extra base or stealing bases as much. But you get to see these legitimate matchups of these superstars, of the best guys in our game against each other. I absolutely love it, and I cannot wait for it tonight. Later on this week, I'll talk a little bit more about the Rangers prospects, re-ranking my top 30 prospects at midseason, and look a little bit ahead at what's coming up for the Rangers in the second half, and if they can actually make this playoff stretch like we're all hoping. That's going to do it for today's show. Thank y'all so much for listening and subscribing, and until next time, don't forget to enjoy World Series champion Texas Rangers baseball.